So in light of this week's Parsha, I can't remember if I told this last week, but it's so fitting again, that, we go through the Sea of Reeds this week, right? And there's this famous midrash that Rabbi Larry Kushner loves to teach. And here it is. The Israelites are going through the Sea of Reeds. The water is on either side of them. And there are a whole bunch of Jews, and all they do is look down at their feet, right? And they're just walking in the mud, and it's right? And they're squishing, and it's cold and muddy and miserable. And all they're doing is looking down and complaining. And they miss the whole miracle. They miss the whole miracle because all they're doing is looking down and looking at the mud. I'm sure you know people like that who focus on the negative. We won't point fingers. Recently, I learned about this new great word in Hebrew. It's called dishdush. And apparently it's like the word on the street right now. Yes? And I had never heard it before. But what it means is stuck in the mud. And that's how everyone is feeling right now in Israel. And I thought it was very, very appropriate because this week's Torah portion, we were stuck in the mud. And people are asking this week, so what's the plan? What's the plan after this war? And how can this war end? And what's the goal of this war? Right after October 7th, remember, there was tons of grief, and there was solidarity and support of Israel and in Israel. And now here we are 4 months later, and there's actually a fracture within Israel, and we all know outside of Israel. And now it's as if, says Dov Waxman, the polarization is on steroids. There's no agreement in the Israeli government among Israeli people about even the goal of the war, right? There's a tension between what to prioritize. Is it defeating and dismantling Hamas or freeing and releasing the hostages? And these two aren't just in tension, they're actually in contradiction with one another. So the dilemma on the table right now is that in order to release the hostages, Hamas is demanding a permanent ceasefire and a release of 8,000 Palestinian prisoners. And with that comes the opportunity for Hamas to regroup, declare victory, and they won't be held accountable for October 7th. Now, I want to remind you, in 2011, Israel released 1,027 prisoners, 280 of whom were serving life sentences for terrorist attacks. And one of those people, oh, by the way, why did we do that in 2011? We released 1,027 prisoners for one person, Gilad Shalit. Do you remember that in 2011? Okay. One of those people that we released, one of the 1,027 people, was Yahya Sinwar. He was the mastermind behind October 7th. Okay, so some people in government say, led by Benny Gantz and Einhorn, they say that A, Israel's not winning, and we won't win. There's a threat on the northern front, Hezbollah. There are 200,000 Israelis right now displaced. There are economic costs to the war. Monday, there were 21 soldiers that died, the worst. The Houthis in Yemen are shooting rockets everywhere. And so the decision is by these people in government, led by Benny Gantz, let's just do a ceasefire and let's get the hostages out. And along with that argument is that we know that one day we're going to be in war with Hamas again. That's argument one. And meanwhile, there's a ceasefire deal that's actually on the table, and it's for all the hostages to be released. It's organized by Egypt, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. And this is what's fascinating. 51% of Israelis are in favor of this idea. Do you ever get 51% of Jews ever agreeing on anything? No. Okay. So I have to admit, this is the first time I'm saying it publicly. I've said it to my girls. It took me until day 100. Today's day 111. It took me until day 100 to finally come out and say I am actually in favor of a ceasefire. And that wasn't easy. None of this is easy. But I remember the morning of the 100th day. That was my breaking point. And I realized that sometimes we have to take a moral stand between two bad choices. And I actually don't regret not speaking up earlier, because I wasn't there yet, and I don't think Israel was there yet, and I don't think the Jewish people were there yet. But in all humility, as a Zionist and as a proud Jew, that's where I am now. Side two. Netanyahu does not want a ceasefire. He doesn't want the war to stop because that would also mean that Hamas would be able to, regroup. And also his coalition will collapse if there's a ceasefire. And he will be tried for war crimes and for other crimes. So here we are, dish douche. We're stuck in the mud. And this week I had the honor of studying with Dov Waxman from UCLA. He's the director of the Israel Studies program. Shelley was there. And so were a bunch of rabbis. And it was a closed-door conversation. And he taught that we need to acknowledge the gravity of today. You know, when you live in a time, you think, oh, whatever, okay, so it's tremendous, it's different. He's saying, no, historically, this is the worst since 1948. As someone who's 56, 57 years old, me, it's hard to wrap my head around that. But as a historian, he's saying this is the worst time since 1948. He says October 7th was a military failure, an intelligence failure, a government failure, and I would now add a PR failure. Dov says that likely Israel is committing war crimes. However, he doesn't agree that they are crimes of genocide. More to come about that on February 4th. Please come, please sign up. So where do we go from here? I want to take us back to the Sea of Reeds because I always ground myself in Torah. We need to get past the mud. The Israelites do get to the other side. They start traveling, and then they start complaining. The water's bitter. Where can we get better water? And then God makes them a deal. God says, Im shamoa tishma. If you will really listen to God's voice and do what is upright and good, then I, God, won't bring diseases upon you like I did to the Egyptians. The Hebrew is really beautiful. I love this part of Hebrew because when Torah wants to emphasize itself, it repeats the verb twice. So here it says, Im shamoa tishmoa, right? You hear it, the two words twice. It means if you really, really listen. That's why we Jews repeat ourselves all the time, right? Or at least New York Jews do. So I want to share what the Me'or Einayim taught about this phrase, if you will really listen. He was the Menachem of Chernobyl. He lived in the 1700s. And he first quotes a line from Talmud. The line is in Brachot. Alexa, you can look it up, 40a. If you listen to the old, you will merit to listen to the new. Nice, right? And then he teaches what's old? Words of Torah. And what do you need to do? You need to make an impression on your mind with the words of Torah. And even if the memory of those words themselves disappears, even if you forget Torah, later some imprint will remain in your brain. And that imprint left by those words of Torah will become a vessel in which further teachings are contained. Beautiful. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about all the imprints that were made on your soul by your parents, by your siblings, by your teachers, by your friends, by circumstances, by challenges, by successes. All those imprints, like words of Torah. And think about how these imprints created vessels for you, frameworks that then filled with new stories and new insights. And some of those imprints actually might have been harmful or unhealthy. And unfortunately, then you sort of dumped in new stories that fit into that old unhealthy model. But I imagine some of those imprints were helpful and strengthening and beautiful. And those imprints birthed positive narratives. And so now I ask us, with the war in Israel and Gaza weighing down on us, what imprints do we want to leave? What imprints do we want to leave on the souls of the children in Gaza and Israel? On the souls of those families who are in agony due to their fallen soldiers and their missing loved ones? On the soul of the state of Israel? On the soul of the Jewish people? On each and every one of our souls. That's where I'm at. It's a choice between two very difficult moral decisions. And it's upon us. That's why we sing Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach. It is upon us